So taking a quick break from sci-fi and 40k content, let's dive into a more fantastical, magical and mythological game universe called God of War. This franchise has been here for 20 years now, and boy am I feeling old. The first game was in 2005, and it is now 25 years since the turn of the millennium. Huh, I saw the 90s. Damn. Anyway, God of War has given us quite a lot of creatures and monsters from Greek, Norse and other European myths. And from all that, here are 10 of the biggest oceanic entities in this franchise. At number 10 we have the Kelpie. In God of War Ragnarok, one of the smallest water creatures you'll ever come across is the Kelpie, and it's still big. In mythology, Kelpies are mysterious spirits, water spirits, that are said to live in the lochs of Scotland. They typically appear as black, horse-like creatures but can shapeshift into human form, though some legends say they always keep their hooves even when disguised. The game's version of the Kelpie can shift its appearance, sometimes looking like an ordinary horse, sometimes like a person, but its true form is a glowing blue-green supernatural being covered in strands of algae. Now, going gigantic in scale, at number 9 we have the Kraken. The Kraken doesn't actually have Greek roots. Instead, stories of this monstrous sea creature originated in Scandinavia, where legends describe it as a gigantic tentacled beast lurking in the deeps. Despite not being Greek, God of War 2 includes the Kraken, likely being inspired from its appearance in the classic 1981 film Clash of the Titans. In the game, the Kraken is a massive nightmarish creature with only 4 visible tentacles. 2 are wrapped around nearby pillars for support, while the other 2, covered in thick, spiked armor, are used for combat. Its head features enormous, eerie eyes, with a mouth filled with sharp fangs and strange gill-like structures on the sides. It also has disturbing oozing sores on its forehead, making it look even more grotesque. At number 8 we have the Basilisk. Then here's the Basilisk, a monstrous lizard-like beast, an amphibious one that appears as one of the first major bosses in God of War Chains of Olympus. The real-world legend of the Basilisk describes it as a snake-like creature so deadly that its gaze alone could kill, and is from European mythology. This version in God of War is more like a fire-breathing dragon with a sail-like structure on its back, with webbing between its limbs and a spiked tail. This massive reptilian terror was brought by the Persian army during its invasion of Attica. According to their king, the Basilisk was meant to purify the land, though in reality it was just there to cause destruction. This beast here appears to be around 50 meters or 165 feet long at least. At number 7 we have Scylla. So Kratos' journey to Atlantis in God of War Ghosts of Sparta kicks off with a bizarre battle against Scylla, a monstrous sea creature summoned by Poseidon himself. This massive beast rampages through everything in its path, using its powerful tentacles and limbs to wreak havoc. To make things worse, it also spawns smaller versions of itself known as Scylla Brood, which adds to the chaos. The fight with Scylla is pretty similar to the Hydra battle from the first God of War game, featuring intense multi-phase combats. Later in the game, as Kratos carefully makes his way across a long narrow path inside the volcano core, Scylla makes a dramatic return just before the volcano erupts. The final showdown takes place underwater, where Kratos delivers the finishing blow by using a massive Archimedean screw to drill straight into Scylla's head, putting an end to this beast for good. At number 6 we have Charybdis. So Charybdis is another legendary sea monster from Greek mythology, and was expected to make an appearance in God of War Ascension, but instead, her role was merged with that of Alecto. In myth, Charybdis was a terrifying creature that lurked beneath the surface of a narrow strait directly opposite to Scylla. She would swallow and regurgitate enormous amounts of water, creating deadly whirlpools that could sink entire ships. While Ascension, God of War Ascension doesn't feature a monstrous sea creature that is Charybdis, this was replaced by Alecto, one of the Furies who transforms into a similar beast resembling a larger, more grotesque version of the Kraken from God of War. Many fans were a bit disappointed that Charybdis didn't get a proper introduction, considering how well Scylla was handled in the previous game. At number 5 we have Lyngbakr. In God of War Ragnarok we meet the Lyngbakr, a titanic whale-like sea creature inspired by Norse legend. In mythology, the Lyngbakr was said to roam the Greenland Sea, but in the game, it's found in Svartalheim, where it has been cruelly chained up. This poor creature was being exploited for its oil, which was extracted and refined right on its back. Over time, the entire makeshift refinery, almost like a tiny island, formed on top of its back. The Lyngbakr itself is an absolutely massive beast, stretching a couple of 100 meters in length, making it one of the larger creatures in the game. although compared to the likes of Surtur or Thamur or Jormungandr, it is about a tiny goldfish. Number 4. The Hydra. So the Hydra was a terrifying multi-headed sea monster that ruled the Aegean Sea in the original God of War game. This was a creative spin on the legendary Hydra from Greek mythology, which was a massive many-headed serpent that lived in the swarms of Lerna. Most myths describe it with 9 heads, but accounts vary. Some say a few as 5, others say as many as 100. Hercules famously fought it and killed it. In God of War, though the Hydra is depicted as a colossal sea serpent, large enough that its head alone are the size of ships, the most dominant head, known as the Hydra King, controls the others, and if it dies, they all die. To give an idea of how just big it is, the Hydra King's head is roughly the same size as the monsterverse Godzilla's head. Yeah, it is that big. Number 3. The Hippocampi. So the Hippocamp, sometimes called as the Hippocampus, or plurally as the Hippocampi, is another mythological creature that made its way into God of War 3. In Greek mythology, Poseidon created these creatures to serve him, and in the game, they do serve him. They are massive horse-like beings with armored limbs and long serpentine tails, as well as a watery elemental body. Unlike the traditional depictions of the hippocamp as elegant sea horses, the game's version is more monstrous with a body fused directly to Poseidon himself, at least his avatar. These creatures are incredibly tough, shrugging off brutal injuries in battle. In combat, these creatures rely on their sheer size and strength, slamming their enormous limbs down on enemies and using powerful water-based attacks. They can fire pressurized jets of water and create massive shock waves by crashing their bodies on the ground. Along with the avatar of Poseidon, these creatures together, as seen in God of War 3, were almost as large as a titan. Number 2. Oceanus. So let's come to Titans. This one is one of the ancient ones, another fascinating figure from Greek mythology who appears briefly in God of War 3. In legend, he was the embodiment of the great river that encircled the world and chose to stay out of the war between the Titans and the Olympians. In the game, Oceanus is portrayed as a massive being composed of water, rocks and electricity, towering over mountains with energy crackling throughout his body. His role in the Great War remains unclear, but he is seen there in the game being dragged down off of Mount Olympus by Hades before the two plunge into the depths below. Some believe Oceanus actually pulled Hades down with him, though his ultimate fate is left ambiguous. Like the other titans, his size is likely around 1500 feet, or close to 465 meters tall. And number 1. Jormungandr. Shifting over to Norse mythology, God of War 4 introduces Jormungandr, also known as the World Serpent. According to legend, Jormungandr is the middle child of Loki and the giantess called Angerboda. The serpent grew so massive that it could wrap itself around the entire world and bite its own tail, earning the title of the Midgard Serpent. In the game, Jormungandr is a truly colossal snake covered in thick, pale blue scales. He has a deep-seated hatred for the Aesir gods, particularly Thor and Odin, for their near extermination of the giants, which he considered his people. Thor in turn despises Jormungandr, and their mutual hatred is destined to reach its climax during Ragnarok, where they are fated to slay each other in an earth-shattering battle. He is estimated to be several miles in length here in the game, and is the biggest aquatic entity here in this list. So these are the 10 biggest water monsters and entities from the God of War franchise. And with that, we come to the end of the video. Do hit that like button for support and subscribe if you haven't. Till the next time, take care, boys.